Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, and today we are going to be continuing to talk about March Madness, and in particular, I'm going to bring up my NCAA bracket because it is absolutely wrecked after the first round, so yay! I'm not getting a sniff of that money. And next, in the second segment, I'm going to also be talking about G League Ignite and how the NBA decided to shut it down, and just give my overall opinions on that. And as always, in the third segment, I'm going to give a quick recap of all the NBA games that went down last night. We also have a special fourth segment coming in, so please stay in tune for that. Before I begin with this segment, however, I'd like to remind everybody to please go ahead and use the link in the description below to get your comments recognized. The link is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. And with that out of the way, we can go ahead and get into our first segment. But today we have a very special guest, so I'd like all of you to give a warm welcome to, hold on just one second, TJ. So he hosts the sports podcast, if I remember correctly, and he does his live streams directly after mine. So go right ahead and introduce yourself, TJ.
Hi, I'm TJ, host of the GSMC Sports Podcast. Like Nelson said, I cover all things sports, really. My live shows are at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern every day. So me and Nelson are the little back-to-back combo.
Yeah, there we go. So basically, he's like this. Our boss calls him like the Swiss Army knife of all like the podcast, because he's broad and he's very good in like all sports. So he talks about every single one of them. So I recommend tuning into his podcast directly after mine. So our topic today is going to be about the NCAA bracket. So if you guys were paying attention to a lot of the games, there were 4 upsets, I believe, last night, and the big one was Kentucky losing yet again to, what was the team that they lost to again?
It was Oakland.
Right, Oakland. And Duquesne, they just ruined, that was the team that ruined my bracket first, Duquesne. I did not expect them to win that. How's your bracket looking, TJ?
I'm all right. The place where I took my biggest loss was Texas Tech falling to NC State, and I kind of hate myself even for betting against NC State. They were the electric run during the ACC tournament, 5 wins in 5 days, the second team to ever do that to win a Power 5 conference. And I don't know, I'm a sucker for Big 12 basketball, so I went with the Red Raiders. And that's what's hurting me this morning.
That makes sense. I mean, I went and picked that team. Like, I didn't pick Texas Tech because I don't know, there was some feeling. Like, you ever have that gut feeling with a pick where it's just like, I don't think they're gonna do it this time. Like, it's just, I don't know what it is. It's just a feeling. Like, you watch them play, and like you watch like the overall energy that they bring like on the court, and like when they face adversity, you just don't really feel it. Like, has that ever happened to you with these picks?
It has, and it's funny because there were a few of these. So I made a handful of brackets this year, obviously, because I'm a little bit of a sicko with it. But there were, for my in general, like I'm in a bracket pool with some friends, and a couple of the upsets, I'm not going to give myself credit for Oakland over Kentucky. Now, I felt that way about Kentucky, to your point of I didn't think they had the legs in them. Frankly, I didn't know enough about Oakland to, really put it on the table and go with that. But I could have seen this one coming. Duquesne is another one over BYU, where with some of their shot selection, I didn't really see it with BYU either. But in both of these cases, in my big time brackets, I was soft and I went with the chalk picks, and ultimately my bracket is no longer perfect because of it.
Yeah, honestly, like the BYU game, that was the first one where it was like I messed up. Like every time like whenever I go out and I see like I usually see BYU games like all over at like bars and things like that, and they look like a unit. Like, when I was watching them, they looked like a legitimate unit, and I was like, okay, I really think that, they got a shot. But no, they decide to ruin everything for my bracket. So that's That's always great. And I don't even want to begin to talk about St. Peter's. Like, I didn't pick them in all of my brackets, but there were a couple of them that there were a couple of brackets where I decided to pick them because they went on that Cinderella run. I'm from New Jersey, and like being from New Jersey, I'm like always behind that team, and it's always like, I mean, it's something that like it brings me to home, I guess you could say. Like, I know we're both we both are affiliated with Quinnipiac as well, so it is like a little bit odd seeing like, oh, you're going for St. Peter's, you're rooting against the enemy and things of that nature. But it's like, it's home, and it's something that I had faith. Like, I guess that was all it is. I just had faith that they could do it again.
Yeah, that's fair. It was an ugly one, and Tennessee is really putting it on for the SEC right now. They had a really rough day yesterday, going 1-3, all of them being the higher seeds. So Tennessee was the one who came through for them there, but I feel like just with the magical run that was a couple years ago with St. Peter's, I can understand how you could have talked yourself into it. Also, to the note of Quinnipiac, the reality is the result would have been just as bad if it was the Bobcats. Obviously, wish they made it just so I could have filled out one bracket, having them win it all. But
that wasn't gonna. I don't think that was gonna happen.
Yeah.
But so. Well, let's go like a little bit deeper like into like the specifics of some of these games. So, how did you feel about the no call? Well, the call on in Kansas going up against Samford?
Yeah, that was a really tough call. So I will give the refs it was the wrong call, 100%. And we're talking about college basketball here, where if it were the NBA, play would have been challenged. We probably would have waited another 10 minutes as they figured it out. But they got the call wrong in the moment. That being said, in full time, Nicholas Timberlake, the Kansas player that went up for the dunk, he hit the ground really hard.
Right. But that's like the ground. It's like you don't call a foul on the ground.
No, obviously you don't. But it did sort of look like a foul. It all happened so fast. But as soon as they played that first replay, you realized, oh, they got that call wrong. And, I was someone who I was into Samford as a potential upset here in this first round. I thought that Kansas they are undermanned, losing their leading scorer, Kevin McCullough Jr., with the injury that has taken him out for the tournament. I thought that the Bulldogs, the way that they played, could have really tired out Kansas, but you also do have to give the Jayhawks credit for the level of offense that they played in this game. I didn't really see that coming, especially missing your leading scorer. So credit to them, but it's unfortunate the way that it played out there, because that was the wrong call, and it did drastically impact the end of that game.
Right, because it was a one possession game at that point. They were only up by 1, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that call, like, it completely changed like the entire flow of the game. And like, I don't want to usually like, excuse me, my bad, but all of the games that, like, at least the ones that I've watched, the refs have been spot on. So like, that was the fact that was like the one bad call out of so many different games that went down like last night. I really don't see like I don't think that's a big deal. Like, I mean, obviously, like, if you're that school, yes, it's a big deal. But so far, the officiating has been really good in this tournament, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think a lot of eyes were on that game because the fact that it's Kansas, this big name program and everything. And it's always tough. Anytime there's a call in the last minute, talk about the last 20 seconds of a game, it's going to be likely very scrutinized. But I do think that the refs have done a very solid job up to this point, which is obviously good, because the last thing you want in really any sporting environment is to have the refs end up being the big story. And ultimately, yes, in this first round matchup against a Samford team like that didn't have, big time expectations, hopefully we can continue to see a clean slate from the refs. But I agree. I think that the fact that, it's not the lead coming out of the first day is a good thing. They've been doing a solid job there.
Right, and there were a lot of games that happened. So which one was your favorite one? Like, which one did you watch all of them? Because I sat through and watched practically every single one of them the best that I could. Because like obviously like there's a lot of them that go on at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. You had to sort of bounce around a little bit. And luckily, I mean, luckily, we all want good games, but there were a handful of instances where we had a few blowout games.
A few. There
So,
was a lot of blowouts. There were a lot more blowouts than close games in this one.
yes, there were, which is the reality, but it also allowed us to sort of focus in on a key game like Kentucky Oakland, which I feel like has to be my favorite pick of the batch. A little bit disappointing. You and I are both NBA fans. I was hoping to see some better performances from the Kentucky duo with the freshmen between Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham, hoping that one of them could sort of put on a bigger performance that could sort of draw scouts in.
I
But at
honestly
the end,
like I prefer like these I prefer these college games where it's like there's not that one dominant player that's scoring all the time and it's like you have no idea exactly like what the outcome is going to be because that's the madness. That's the March Madness that everyone knows and it's like I feel like we want to talk about like someone just completely dominating and taking control of the game. What about that kid from Oregon? Like that just I
oh
believe
yeah,
like he dropped 40 something. I think he ended the game with
yeah,
40 points.
40 points.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I'm just going to pull up his name just because like I just said that kid and it's like he's
It's
probably older than the both.
Jermaine Kusnard, I think
Yeah,
is how you
Jermaine
pronounce his
Kusnard,
last name.
exactly. I just wanted to make sure that I got like the pronunciation of that correctly, but like I mean, he went off, so it's like you have those games like obviously those games in college are like few and far in between, but it just makes it like so much better when it does happen, right? Like cuz when those games do happen from a really like a kid and like a really good or a young kid, a freshman, a sophomore, however old he is, or whichever age really, if it happens in college, it's like, "Oh my gosh, like that kid is insane." And you
Yeah.
usually don't really see that in March Madness. It's more like team basketball, which is why I think a lot of people really draw to it a little bit more because it's like when you look at the NBA, it's like oh, you shoot the three every single time, over and over and over again. And it's like you go to the paint, you do this, and then you immediately get sent to the line. But in college, it's sort of like part of it comes with the officiating. Like they sort of allow the players to do what they or to decide the game, and it's like they're allowing the players to get more physical. They allow them to press up on defense. They're allowing them to like go up like strong and like sometimes there's gonna be fouls obviously, but most of the times they don't get called, especially when the guy on offense does this like just
Yeah.
because.
College basketball is definitely seen a little bit more as the purest form of basketball, where you also talk about the NBA, along with all the flopping that the NBA has desperately been trying to eliminate the past couple years. I think that the skill level and the talent is also so high. So
Mm-hmm.
you see this isolation basketball where Luca can shoot from anywhere on the court. He can
Right.
take basically anyone off the dribble, where you don't have necessarily that weapon in college basketball a lot of the time. So
Exactly.
you see a lot more team game, and it can be very appealing to, traditional basketball
Right.
fans.
And I mean, like, that's sort of like, that's really like where the struggle was with St. Peter's. Like, they were running an they were running straight isolation like half the time. They would just pass the ball to someone and then someone would try to do something with the ball. And they just weren't doing anything. Like, the defender was staying in front of them every time. And it sort of allowed like Tennessee like to build up that lead and like they got into a hole and then they couldn't get out of it because like where is your offense? Oh, our offense is people trying to ISO. You can't ISO? Uh-oh. Like
Yeah.
it was really tough to watch and it's like that's sort of like what's expected coming in from college because like you don't really expect these kids to be like you expect them to be great but you don't expect every single one of them to be able to create a shot for themselves.
Yeah.
And
And I think another example of this somewhat is from the BYU Duquesne game, where BYU runs an offense that is very reliant on the 3-point line, almost NBA, similarities to it. And how Duquesne won that game was they ran BYU off of the 3-point line. They forced them to sort of get better looked shots inside, And it took the Cougars long enough to adjust to that, where the Dukes were able to build up the lead that they were, and they end up pulling off the upset. That's something that we see all the time in the NBA. I mean, I'm a Celtics fan, and how many times do you hear the hey now, hey now? How many times do you hear the criticisms that they settle for outside shots too much, which is fair. They're a very high volume 3-point shooting team. And a lot of the time in the NBA, you hate to boil it down like this because I enjoy basketball too much to oversimplify it. But a lot of the time it's, are you hitting your 3-pointers? And if you're not, a lot of the times it's tough to win games like that when that is your identity. And we saw an example of that in college basketball yesterday.
Right. So with that, we're out of time for the first segment. So now we're going to go ahead into the second segment where we're going to talk about G League, the team Ignite, I believe it is. The NBA announced that they're shutting down that team. So I will be right back. We will be right back. I'm so used to saying after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in the second segment, we are going to be talking about the NBA G League, the team Ignite, where the NBA announced that they were going to be shutting down that team. But before we begin with this segment, I'd like to remind everybody to please go right ahead and to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized. And the link that's displayed below the ticker on every single show segment, that is gsmcpodcast.net, really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. So with that out of the way, me and TJ, we can go right ahead into the second segment where we talk about the NBA shutting down G League Ignite. Now, Ignite was a team that is responsible for creating Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga and bringing them up into the NBA, getting drafted. And, I mean, with the coming of NIL deals, it was sort of like expected that the NBA was going to start cutting down on some G League teams. And Adam Silver even announced it that, he was going to start cutting down some of these G League teams and might even start shutting it down completely. And we're seeing a lot of problems coming up with NIL deals and some of the problems are player being entitled. Some of the problems are also being this right here and shutting down other programs. But TJ, what do you think of these NIL deals? Do you think they bring more harm than good, or do you think opposite of that?
I mean, I think that where it starts is the reality of the situation. The NCAA was benefiting off of players' names for so long and just getting away with it almost as free labor. Now, they were getting scholarships, so it's not like these athletes weren't getting anything out of the process. I agree with them being able to get paid, but it is absolutely a different world in college athletics now, where you have to balance all of these different factors. We're seeing athletes jump from school to school. I don't know if you saw the story. Tommy of the College Football Podcast on our network covered a story. I don't have the name specifically, but this offensive tackle for Alabama football, he was at Alabama. He decided to transfer after Nick Saban announced his retirement, said he was going to Iowa, and after 2 months is transferring back to Alabama, which just sort of goes to show some aspects of it are a little bit of a joke. And, you know, it's about the good of these individual athletes, but I do think that there's an argument to be made for some of the harm that comes with it, where it doesn't really incentivize players as athletes and just as people, because ultimately that's part of the development of college sports, is to become a person that works for something bigger than just yourself, and you are developing as a person, and you're just sort of hopping around, leaving when the situation gets tough, and there are downfalls to it. So while I think it's necessary to allow players to make money, it has gotten a little bit out of control in certain instances.
Yeah, and that's sort of been like what a lot of people were afraid of. Like a lot of people were gonna think like, oh, if we start paying these kids now, their heads are going to get big, and it's like, oh, I'm worth this much. Oh, I'm actually worth this much. Oh, you're not gonna pay me. I'm going to go to a school that pays me more, and it's like, where do we draw that line? It's like, where do we draw the line where it's like, okay, these college athletes, like, they deserve the recognition, like, because I do believe that they do deserve, like, the name, image, and likeness deals because of what they're bringing, to the organization, to the program, to the school, and it's like, where do we draw that line? Because it's very difficult because, like, I can see both sides. It's like, on one end, oh, the players are going to get entitled, but on the other end, it's not like they don't deserve that kind of money. So,
yeah, I think the other interesting thing too is you consider the average student, Grant, they can transfer schools as much as they want without repercussions. There's a lifestyle aspect to all of this that goes beyond just the athletics.
right.
So it's hard to say that you are being restricted from moving around, but maybe there is some sort of future of signing contracts that you are going to be with a school for a couple years. I know that sounds maybe a little outlandish, but as it becomes slightly more professional in terms of the making money, you're making an agreement, they are giving you free money to come to school, period, and then you can make the money on top of it as well. I'm not sure how we can incentivize this loyalty a little bit more, but I do think that to make college sports better, there needs to be some sort of a way, and maybe it's coaching as time goes on, where coaches are just going to have to adapt and find a better way to be able to retain their athletes. But I think that's also a huge ask, along actually doing the coaching of your team, that you are trying to win as many games as possible. You're trying to recruit for the future as well. I'm not sure what the easy fix is. I don't think there is one.
Right. And I also think, like, I'm also thinking about, like, the other perspective on it, like, for, like, the women's side of a lot of sports, because women are getting a lot more money now with name, image, and likeness deals than they ever would in the NBA, or WNBA, excuse me. And, like, I see a lot more commercials with Caitlin Clark in them than I see other WNBA players. Like, it's really, sometimes it's like the names are escaping me now. Like Brittany Griner, like I've seen Caitlin Clark in more ads than I've ever seen Brittany Griner in, and she's played for Team USA. She's also a WNBA athlete, and it's like, with these name, image, and likeness deals, it's bringing that attention to the women's side that they weren't getting so many years back. And it's like, I understand that aspect too, because it's like the women, they should be getting paid as much, or like just as much as these men, if they can bring in that much attention, especially someone like Caitlin.
Yeah, well, that's why she's so revolutionary to women's sports, because, I mean, if you look back, and you and I are nowhere near old enough to say we were a part of it, but if you look at the very inception of the NBA, the growth was exponential. It's not like they just started playing basketball and everybody was like, "Oh, let's buy into this.
Well,
Let's
I
make
mean, the growth definitely like it peaked with Michael Jordan, which is what I think like Caitlyn is going to be for the WNBA. She is
yeah,
going to be Michael
exactly.
Jordan.
It takes years to build this thing up, and what you need is talent. And now that there's so much more attention to the women's sports, you have some stars in the WNBA that when they make their transition to the WNBA, I would bet anything that Caitlin Clark's debut is going to be minimum top 3 most viewed WNBA game in history.
I think it's going to be
Probably
top one.
Probably.
I think it's
And
going to be top one. Like,
yeah,
bro, imagine if we saw a Gianna Bryant go up against Caitlin Clark. Oh my gosh, the media
like
would
that would pull in
flip.
views. Mm-hmm.
The media
So
would flip. Like, I mean,
absolutely.
before Caitlyn like became Caitlyn and became her. I can't even say him. Can I say him? I don't even know if do I say him or do I say her?
Yeah.
But like then there was Gianna, there was Gigi, and everyone thought that like, oh my gosh, she's going to be a demon in the WNBA because literally is the spawn of Kobe Bryant. But it's like now like thank the Lord that now we're like the talent in like the women's sports in not just basketball but just in general is like getting a lot of recognition now. And I believe that I keep saying WNBA, the women's NCAA, the tickets, they already sold out in the Final Four. I'm pretty sure I saw an article that said that, and they sold out a lot quicker than the men's.
Yeah. Well, there's honestly so much more star power in the women's tournament than there is in the men's tournament right
Honestly,
now.
yeah, that's very true. Like you don't really, I mean, everyone thought that it was going to be Bronny James that was going to be like the face of college and like, oh, he's going to average all this, that, and the other. But now when I really think about it, there isn't really like that prominent men's college basketball figure that like is taking over the market, if that makes sense, right? Like
Yeah,
most people
I
talk
totally
about
agree.
like they talk about Bronny just because he's LeBron's offspring. And like from recent memory, the only like real college prospect that I can think of is Lonzo. Like
I mean, Zion was also
right.
pretty much
I
off the
completely
stage
forgot
there.
about him too. And even then, like his media attention now is like very, very, like very, very little compared to what it was when he was in Duke,
Yeah.
which is crazy to
I
think about.
totally agree. And sort of to your point about the NIL and everything, I think part of that reason is we've also seen these woman stars sort of grow up in these programs where Caitlin Clark has played for years, Angel Reese has played for years, and on the men's side, so much of it is one and dones, and a lot of the time we have these top players transferring as well. Like we don't have a sort of staple face in the men's game. The closest to it is probably Zach Edey of Purdue, but there's a couple different factors. He doesn't play the most, entertaining brand of basketball. It's very ref reliant, you could make the argument. A lot of people, because of that, don't even necessarily.
They also keep blowing it in my bracket.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is it's not like they have any of these iconic runs where they've been early exits every year with Edey, but he's the two-time, player of the year that we haven't seen on a big stage yet. Meanwhile, in the WNBA, we have the Caitlin Clarks of the worlds, the LSUs that are making these runs, getting into these heated, high-stakes moments, and we just haven't had the star power like that in the men's game, really.
Yeah, like I mean, I only knew about like I'm not even gonna lie. I only knew about him because he messed up my bracket, and he was ridiculously tall. Like the coverage on him was like meh, and that's sort of how
not
it
very
really
marketable, to be honest.
right.
Just
And but like when you look at Caitlyn, like yes, she is something that could be marketable, especially now since she owns the record for most points ever in college, and it's like. obviously, like, part of it is by having, like, an inspirational story, things of that nature, but, like, the other part of it is just, like, being that girl. I can't say that guy because, like,
Yeah.
she's a female. It's
Well,
you
she's
gotta
a bucket.
yes,
Like,
exactly,
you
and it's
play her
like
highlight reels, and everybody can be impressed with it. You can be a guy, you can be a girl. She is a bucket. And
exactly, and it's like that's sort of, and we're supposed to be talking about like the G League shutting down, so we might as well like, what are your opinions on that? Like, I mean, you saw this coming, right?
yeah, I did. And, not that I ever root for failure necessarily. I did want the Ignite to fall through because sort of tying this into the conversation we've been having, it also has sort of robbed us in a way of some of these star players that have been lottery picks. We talk about Scoot Henderson last year, Jonathan Kuminga, you have Jalen Green. These players could have been very marketable in college basketball, but they go to the Ignite. And as a whole, the Ignite program before NIL existed, I was for it. I thought that it made a lot of sense of the NBA trying to give an opportunity to some of these prospects to make money. But as soon as that happened, you had the NCAA versus Alston court case go through, and name, image, and likeness was approved. So there wasn't necessarily that same lane, as Adam Silver put it at All-Star Weekend.
Yeah,
They were
there's no
filling-
real need for like to have a G League if you're gonna have like these players get paid in college, because like that's sort
Yeah.
of that was like the thing that set apart the G League from college, where it's like, do you want to hoop to get paid, or do you want to hoop to like grow and develop and things of that nature? Like that was sort of the main difference. And not saying that you don't grow and develop when you're like part of the G League, but like you're getting paid. So it's like that was
Yeah.
sort of the really big difference. And like you also have to take into account the education aspect, because now not only are the athletes getting paid, they're also getting an education.
Yeah. And I do think that sort of to that as well, you talked about the development. Not that it's everything, right? Because a lot of these players are one and done anyways. But I do feel like there is a semblance of all these players on these college teams. Yes, some of them have NBA aspirations, but they have a greater goal, and that's to be a part of this team, to succeed, to try and win a national championship. Where in the Ignite program, it's a lot of these prospects sort of stepping on each other's toes, just trying to become solely the best prospect possible, and winning wasn't really prioritized, and there wasn't a real sense of chemistry. And that's why I think we see a lot more raw prospects come into the league. And Jalen Green, I've defended him. I think he's a bucket. Jonathan Kuminga took a while.
I thought opposite of him until like apparently like he needs his baby mama to be pregnant in order for him to hoop, which is honestly like, I mean, all credit to him, because like if that's your drive, go for it. And like, but it's like, do it consistently, because like I think he's a shot chucker sometimes. I don't know what it is.
Well, he is, and that's, I think, in part due to the fact that he didn't play in a college system where it was a team game. He was just in this situation where for a whole year he was just trying to become the best possible NBA prospect, as opposed to actually learning what it takes to be a part of a team.
And then being a part of Houston, it's like the team wasn't really compete. I don't want to say that, like, at the time that they grabbed him, they weren't really competing for like a playoff spot. So it's like it's definitely a little bit difficult for him to like mesh with that, like, oh, there is no I in team type of quote. And
they didn't have expectations either, like you said.
But at the same time, however, you really like maybe that's just him, because look at Jonathan Kuminga. He is right now the second best option on the Golden State Warriors, and he's playing very, very well. But then again, I mean, your life ultimately becomes easier when you're playing with Steph.
Yeah, this is very true. But also keep in mind, right before he erupted into the player that he was frustrated with Steve Kerr about not getting enough minutes. And that's, again, because he's a talent. He should have been getting the minutes.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't really think, that's just a confidence thing. Like, if you really... if you really think that, like, you deserve these minutes, you're going to voice that to your coach. And, like, obviously, like, the coaches, if I was a coach, I would definitely take that into consideration and put him in and see, like, okay, let's see what he's got. Because it's like, if you are confident with your game, that is the key part to being a basketball star, having that confidence. And it's like, that's sort of like, that's a big reason why some of these players are in the slumps, that, like, they have these shooting slumps, because it's like that pressure is all over the place, and you need that confidence to sort of cancel all that pressure out. Because if you think and if you know that you are that guy, you are going to perform like you are that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
totally
like that's something that I really liked about Jonathan Kuminga, because he knew his game. He knew exactly what Steve Kerr was missing out, and he walked the walk and he talked the talk.
But it also took 2 years for him to become the player he is today.
That is true.
And the Warriors, sort of a totally different situation than the Rockets,
right,
where they were all in on trying to win a championship. The Rockets were trying to build a culture. The Warriors already had sort of the most prominent culture in the NBA, and it was trying to slide in this young prospect into it. Now he's flourishing.
Yeah, it's very interesting how they're gonna pair up Jalen Green with Sengun when Sengun gets back in the rotations, because he is injured, and that's unfortunate for Houston. But then again, they weren't really, actually, I lied. They do have a chance to make the play-in spot now because of Golden State and their recent struggles. So we'll see how that plays out in like the rest of the season. But with that, we are out of time for this second segment, so I will be continuing the third and the fourth segment alone. So really appreciate you, TJ, for being on the show. Thank you so much. And
yeah, of course, thanks for having me on.
Any last words before Zoom kicks you out?
Nothing really. Go Celtics.
Boo!
And you can catch me on the GSMC Sports Podcast at 2:00.
All right, so be sure to tune into that, everyone. So, see you, TJ. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
All right, so what a nice guy. We love to see it. So I'm just going to go ahead and end this meeting, because like you guys can't see it, but right now he's still in the Zoom meeting. So, see you, TJ. There we go. And, yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think of TJ. He's a great guy. Other than the fact that he's a Celtics fan and a Patriots fan, just, ugh. I don't even want to know if he's a Red Sox fan, because then, everything's just ew. But I digress. Now, in the third segment, we are going to pivot over to NBA basketball and do a quick recap of all the NBA games that happened last night. I'm sure not many people really watched those NBA games because, college was going on and college was taking everyone by storm. That was the big talk that was going in. So I'll just give a quick recap of what happened, any type of important stories. I'll keep you guys updated. So I will be right back after this short break.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I am all alone now, but it doesn't matter because you don't really need many people to talk about what happened in the previous games in the NBA. So that's exactly what I'm going to do in this segment. I'm going to give a quick recap of all the games because I'm sure not many people were paying as much attention to the NBA games as they were to college basketball. So that's going to be like the main that's going to be the main focus of attention throughout the madness of this month and going into like who wins the NCAA tournament. So expect to see a lot more college, and there are games that are going down right now as I speak, which I am not watching for some baffling reason. I need to pull that up on my computer ASAP. So, but before I do that, I'm gonna do a quick recap of all the games that happened last night, all the NBA games. Excuse me. So first on the list, I'm gonna rip off the Band-Aid right now. The Milwaukee Bucks completely owned the Brooklyn Nets. So yay me, another reason why I need to be upset and sad. Not just my bracket messing up, but now my team is messing up. But like they've always messed up, really. Let's see. Mikal Bridges. Oh, he finally dropped 20 points. It only took him like 5 games. Ended the game. Oh. He ended the game 9 for 19, 6 of 14 from the field. This is very, very bad shooting coming in from Bridges. Claxton ended the game with 22 points. 9 of 12 from the field. Cam Thomas ended the game 8 for 17 from the field, 21 points. Cameron Johnson ended the game 6 of 13 from the field with 17 points. And Dennis Schroeder, who we decided to trade for, ended the game 2 of 9 for 5 points. Yay! That's always fantastic. Lonnie Walker, IV, ended the game 1 of 7 from the field. So, yes, you guys can totally understand why I'm really upset just looking at this. This box score is pitiful. Like, Schroeder played 34 minutes and only ended with 5 points. So, yay. Let's look at the Bucks side. Damian Lillard, he ended the game with 30 points and 12 assists. So, obviously, and Giannis was playing this game, so yay. That's always good. That's a good sign for the Bucks, just beating on a bottom-of-the-barrel team with Giannis and Dame, always great. And they only won by 7 points, by the way, so maybe there needs to be a little bit more concern with the Bucks still, and their potential of making a deep playoff run. But I digress. Giannis ended the game 21 points, 5 assists, 9 rebounds. Malik Beasley ended the game with 16 points, and Brook Lopez ended the game with 17 points. Now, Bobby Portis, okay, he did not have a good outing tonight, Bobby Portis, but really, when you have a great team like this, well, an above-average team like this, they don't really need the production of Bobby Portis. And there is somebody in the Crucial PG, again in the chat. Okay, let's breathe. 9 of 19 is one shot under 50%. Yes, I get it. But this is Mikal Bridges. We thought he was going to take the leap in being the face of this team. And so far, he has not done that whatsoever. He has done the exact opposite. His production went down, his shooting went down, everything went down, and this game is not helping the Nets win whatsoever. So it's like, And on top of that, the coach is also, ever since we got that new coach, we've been losing. But then again, the Nets have been losing without that coach, so I don't know what they need. I don't know what they got to do now. I really don't know what the solution is. Maybe sell the team back to New Jersey so that way they could just be a New Jersey team. They had way more success on New Jersey than they ever did in Brooklyn, but I digress. So, nothing really much that needs to be said about this game other than the fact that it was close, and it's a little bit concerning for the Bucks that it was close because, again, this team is just not the team that I thought it was going to. Is just not as good as I thought it was going to pan out. And they face the Thunder this Sunday, so if you guys are not watching March Madness, you should probably tune into that at 7 o'clock. And we will see just how good their performance really is against the Thunder, against a team that is also competing for a very good spot. But, yes, so blow up the roster. Gone. Everything. The franchise, gone. Sell it back to New Jersey. Crucial PG in the chat, it says, there is no fix. Okay, hold on. because I have to scroll up now and it's not letting me scroll up. Okay. There is no fix. Y'all could have traded Bridges for 5 firsts and and Dorian Finney-Smith for 2 more. Yeah. We don't have a really good. The Nets don't have a really good history for trades. If you guys don't remember the Paul Pierce trade, the Nets decided to trade for Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, and those picks decided to be, guess who? Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So, yay, Brooklyn just showing how great. Oh, and you can't forget the trade for Ben Simmons, right? You cannot forget that trade whatsoever. But I digress. Let's move on before I just absolutely lose my mind. It's been nothing but L's for New York in the NBA. The Knicks lost to the Denver Nuggets 100-113, so that's always fantastic. Nikola Jokic, triple-double, obviously Mr. Triple-double, the king of it. He is the best player in this league, MVP without a doubt. 30 points, 11 assists, and 14 rebounds. He does this on a daily basis. It's like, you can't stop him. And Michael Porter Jr. with the funniest stat line of all time. 31 points, 8 rebounds, and 0 of everything else. 0 assists, because as we know, Michael Porter Jr. does not pass the ball. He shoots the ball. Shooters shoot. He shot 3 of 16 from the field. 3 of 6 from 3. 13 of 16. Jesus, excuse me. I said that very badly. 13 of 16 from the field with 31 points. Very, very impressive shooting coming in from him. Jamal Murray, 9 for 20 from the field, 23 points. Not bad. It was decent. I mean, you don't really need to produce that much when you have your other 2 options produce just as much. And there was nothing that really needs to be said. I mean, when those 3 players have a great game, when they have 20 or more, it's really difficult to stop them. And let's just see, looking at the Knicks box score, Josh Hart did not play every single minute of this game this time. Ended playing 36 minutes with only 2 points. So, definitely could have used a lot more production from him. Brunson ended the game with 26 points and 9 assists. Isaiah Hartenstein ended the game with 20 points as well. And DiVincenzo ended the game with 11 points. And Hartenstein shot the best from the field. It makes sense. He is a center, so he is expected to shoot very well from the field. But Jalen Brunson, he could have shot a little bit better from 3, which would have probably put this Knicks team in a better spot to win it. But I digress. They're a very difficult team to beat, the Denver Nuggets. They swept the regular season series against the Boston Celtics, who are the best team in the Eastern Conference. So, again, I hope that we see the Knicks go into the finals. If there's any team that gets into the finals, I really hope it's the Knicks. Or the Orlando Magic. And I'd say that because the Orlando Magic ended up beating the Pelicans in a blowout win, 121-106. And, again, no real media coverage coming in for the Orlando Magic because I don't know what there isn't to cover. Paolo Banchero ended the game with 20 points, 11 assists, and 10 rebounds. He is really, really good, and he's one of the best sophomores in this league, and he gets no media attention. I really don't understand what it is. And he shot 50% from the field as well while getting this triple-double. And it's his play style, it's like a mix of Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James. That's sort of what this mix is, in the sense of, he's a very good mid-range shooter, and he could still do, all these other things on the court. He could pass the ball, and he could rebound the ball very well. And let's see, who else played really well? Jalen Suggs ended the game with 22 points. Again, another player that doesn't really get that much media coverage. I saw him on Gonzaga. He was an absolute hooper. That man could get buckets. And let me just see how he shot. Also shot 50% from the field. 7 of 14, 3 of 8 from 3. And who else had a very good game? Franz Wagner ended the game with 18 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds. Very dominant win coming in from the Orlando Magic. Zion did not play very well this game, only 20 points, 7 rebounds. As Stephen A. Smith would say, he was eating a table. I have no idea what compelled Stephen A. Smith to say that about Zion, but that was absolutely outrageous. And CJ McCollum, 6 of 12, 18 points. One of the most underrated players that the NBA has seen, in my personal opinion, is without a doubt CJ McCollum. When he was on the Trailblazers, obviously he wasn't getting that much attention because he was on the Trailblazers and he was playing with Dame. But he was like just as good, and if not sometimes better than Dame was, like in the playoffs especially. When in 2019, when the Portland Trailblazers, they made it to the Western Conference Finals, they had to get past the Nuggets in order to do so. And it wasn't Damian Lillard who closed the game out. It was CJ McCollum. And again, doesn't really get that much attention from the media with it, and I don't understand why. He's also never been selected to be an all-star, and I think this is the only one of the very few players who's kept an average of 20 points in every single season and didn't even get selected to be an all-star. Like, he's ridiculously irrelevant when you're looking at a lot of these games. And Zion as well. We talked about it in the previous segments, how like irrelevant Zion has been according to the media, and I really just don't understand how, when they can do all of these things, and it's not like CJ isn't flashy, because he is flashy at times. Brandon Ingram ended the game 7 of 12 with 14 points. They need a lot more production from their three best players if they want to do anything to make a deep playoff run. And losing to the Orlando Magic, not a very good sign for the Pelicans, but still. Orlando Magic. And Crucial PG was in the chat saying knee injury, out for 2 weeks. Yeah, he did get a knee injury, but regardless, still, I feel like he should get a lot more recognition when we're talking about CJ McCollum. I feel like he should get a lot more recognition going into not just right now with the Pelicans, but just in general. I feel like he might be their closer. If Zion's not playing well, I really think he might be the closer. And Crucial PG is telling me that he got hurt last night. Oh, well, that's fantastic. Well, they're probably not gonna make a deep playoff run in that case. So with that in mind, let's see where they stand right now. I am very curious to. Hold on, let me see. Oh, no, it's Brandon Ingram that got hurt. Even with Brandon Ingram hasn't really gotten that much attention either. When you think about it, I'm just looking at the report right now. We don't really hear much about Ingram. We heard him when he was on the Lakers a lot. But now that I think about it, no one on the Pelicans really gets talked about. Am I crazy to say that? And I don't really read much. I see a lot of media posts and things of that nature, but when I'm looking at Ingram, it's or when I'm looking at Zion or when I'm looking at CJ, there's not much media attention. Am I wrong to say that? When Ingram was on the Lakers, he was always being talked about oh, he's going to be one of the best players in the draft. He's going to be better than Tatum, things of that. But now that he's on the Pelicans, and it's not like the Pelicans are doing bad. They're 5th in the West. I don't hear him whatsoever. Is he just playing bad? I don't think he's playing bad. The averages show that he's not playing bad. So what gives? And it's the same deal with Paolo. What gives? What gives with this weak media coverage? But they would rather talk about, playoff Jimmy Butler. Really? But I digress. And well, that's an upset. The Wizards just beat the Sacramento Kings 109-102. So I'm just going to go ahead and look at the standings right now. And, okay, so they are still the worst team in the Eastern Conference, so that checks out. The Kings, however, Sabonis ended the game 14 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists. Again, pretty good. It was a very good performance coming in from Sabonis. De'Aaron Fox ended the game with only 25 points. I expected a little bit more points coming in from him just because of how weak the Wizards' defense actually is. 10 for 30 from the field. Yeah, he definitely should have scored more points than just 25. And 5 of 15 from the 3. The Wizards, they ended Kyle Kuzma had a game. Kyle Kuzma had a great game. He ended the game with 31 points. Let's see, Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole's back in the starting lineup. I guess their team is really that bad. They have to put Poole back in the lineup. And 5 for 11 from the field, 14 points. Again, you guys know my opinions on Jordan Poole. Like, really, really, really bad. And, like, definitely not the player that I expected coming in from going to the Washington Wizards. Now, just scrolling up just to see if I missed anything in the chat. Zion does get he's saying, Crucial PG in the chat saying Zion does get recognition from the media, but it's just fat jokes. Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, when you only hear bad things about him, but when he's actually doing well, we never hear anything about him. And even, like, it's so odd. Like, but, you know, everyone always has to mention LeBron, whether it's good or bad. And, like, speaking of mentioning LeBron, I just did right now. But that's, like, the only good example that I could bring, because that's sort of what it seems like every single time. Like, we get LeBron. And while I am a LeBron fan, sometimes it does get a little bit odd how the coverage is just focused on whatever the heck he does. Like, he could be eating a taco, and it's just like, oh, need to watch him eating a taco or something like that. Oh, he could be sitting courtside. Gotta pay attention to him sitting courtside when Zion is dropping like 30 points or something like that. Like, it's weird how the coverage works, but I digress. So, again, the Wizards, they're not going anywhere. The Kings are going somewhere, however, and the fact that they're losing to these bad teams is definitely, like, it's not a good look. And they played the Orlando Magic going into tomorrow. Orlando Magic. I have the Magic winning this matchup. And, like, the Kings right now, they are the 8th seed in the Western Conference, and they look to be playing in the play-in tournament, like, in the play-in rounds. They just replaced the Dallas Mavericks, and I think it makes more sense for the Kings to be in the play-in than Dallas at this point, because, I mean, Dallas is just absolutely owning every single team that they've been playing with. Luka's been phenomenal, and I'm going to quickly speed through the rest of these games because we are running out of time. Speaking of Dallas just beat the Utah Jazz 113-97. Luka Doncic ended the game with 34 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists. Kyrie Irving ended the game with 16 points and 7 assists. Not going to be that harsh on Kyrie Irving considering how it is Ramadan and he doesn't really eat that much during this time. So, all power to him. The fact that he's able to play this much and still, like, play at an elite level. And it's the same amount of respect that we give to Hakeem for doing it, we should give to Kyrie, in my personal opinion. And Daniel Gafford ended the game with 24 points, only missed 1 shot. He's like the new DeAndre Jordan / Blake Griffin in the sense where he catches all the lobs. But looking at the Jazz side, again, the Jazz they're rebuilding. And I knew they were going to be a rebuilding team after they traded Kelly and Olynyk and all those other players. They definitely need this rebuild. And they're just going to lose. They've been losing a lot of games recently. Right now they're 12th in the Western Conference. There is a possibility that they make the play-in, but I don't think it's worth it for them. And it is worth it for the Houston Rockets to make the play-in, however. That right now the Houston Rockets, they sit 11th in the West, and they look like they could take Golden State's spot if Golden State continues to be regressing in terms of team play. Now, speaking of Houston, they ended up beating the Chicago Bulls 127-117, and Jalen Green ended the game playing 40 minutes with 26 points. Fred VanVleet ended with 9 points, but was able to rally 12 assists. And Dylan Brooks ended the game with 23 points, and he got ejected, so he was only able to play 25 minutes. But, I mean, is there really, like, I don't want to talk much about, like, his ejection, because, like, is it really a surprise to see that Dylan Brooks got ejected from a game because he was fighting? Like, I really don't think there's really much to talk about. Aaron Holiday, a player from the bench, only played 18 minutes, but ended up getting 15 points. And Jock Landale, forgive me if I botched that last name, ended the game with 17 points and 12 rebounds. So a very good double-double coming in from him. And there's not really much that needs to be said about this game other than the fact that, both of those teams are fighting for a play-in spot. So both of them, they really need to start winning. And let me just see. The last game on this list is the Suns going up against the Hawks. Now, the Suns ended up winning 128-115. So there is that. Devin Booker ended the game with 30 points. Looking at Kevin Durant, KD ended the game with 19 points. And Bradley Beal ended the game with 12 points. So the big three doing big three things, obviously. And Eric Gordon made an appearance on this box score, scoring 21 points. Now, in 24 minutes as well. Obviously, the scoring on this team is the best thing about this team. But again, no defense, so I'm a little bit worried. But you really don't need that defense when Devin Booker is shooting 10 of 15 from the field and getting you 30 points. Very difficult to beat a team that shoots that well. Eric Gordon, 8 of 11 from the field as well, 21 points, 4 of 6 from 3. Kevin Durant was the only one on the big three that shot relatively efficient, getting 19 points on 5 of 15 from the field. And Bradley Beal, definitely he's not been the same 30 points per game scorer that I've seen when he was on Washington. Only 12 points, 4 of 7 from the field. So, that's usually what's expected. You have to, sacrifice in order to allow your other stars to be great. And, the Phoenix Suns as a team, they shot 55% from the field and 53% from three. And it's very difficult to win when you're doing those kinds of things on the court. Now, Corrido MVP is in the chat. What's up? KD not going to be on Suns much longer. Honestly, I don't know. I really don't know what's going through KD's head right now. If they end up losing, then I could totally see him leaving that team and trying to get a ring somewhere else. But he might stay on the Suns. But who knows? I really can't tell with Kevin Durant. He goes to the team that he feels is going to give him the easiest chances to win. That's his character. That's just what he is. And it's I have no idea whether he's going to stay or whether he's going to go. As a Brooklyn Nets fan, I thought he finally he turned a new leaf and he wanted to start anew with help, obviously. I don't really expect him to carry a team by himself because that's just too much to ask for anyone. There's nothing wrong with getting a little bit of help to try and win an NBA championship. But when James Harden left and he was like, oh, I want to join Phoenix, literally the team with the number 1 record in the West, I'm like, okay, he hasn't changed a bit whatsoever. And I just don't get it. I really just don't get it with him. Corrido MVP, he says Kevin Durant and Devin Booker kind of hate each other. I don't think that's the relationship. I really don't think that's the relationship that they have with each other. They're both bucket getters. They both want the ball in their hands, and they both want to score a lot. So when you look at that and when you think about that, it's very difficult to share the ball amongst each other. And I don't think they really hate each other. I really don't. I genuinely don't. If anything, I think Kevin Durant doesn't like Kyrie Irving because of the time that he wasted on Brooklyn because of Kyrie, just for Kyrie to request a trade. But we don't know. We don't know exactly what's going on the inside. Says Suns Corrido MVP in the chat. He says a lot of Suns podcasters been reporting that Devin Booker and Kevin Durant had arguments on who should be the first option and whose team this is. Yeah, that's the ego part of both of them. And it's I wouldn't classify that as hating each other. I just classify that as who's going to be the alpha, because that is a genuine question. Because some nights it might be Devin Booker leading the team. Other nights it might be Kevin Durant leading the team. So again, wouldn't be surprised if that is what eventually pushes Kevin Durant out, because Kevin Durant is very, very soft. For being a very tall man, he's very soft personality. And that was one of the big reasons why he left the Golden State Warriors, because at the time with when he was winning finals MVPs, people were still calling, and the media was still calling Golden State Stephen Curry's team. Because let's face it, it was Stephen Curry's team. Stephen Curry just allowed Kevin Durant to do what he wanted on his team. But I digress. So that was sort of like the reasoning, part of the reasoning as to why that was part of the reasoning as to why Kevin Durant decided to leave. But with that, that's the end of the recap. We are out of time for this third segment. So join in for the fourth segment where I talk about the matchups in the NCAA that are going on right now and the odds on like which team has the best chances of winning. And also, since there are people in the chat, I might as well go ahead and answer some questions that you guys have while I'm paying attention to some of these games. So I will be right back after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, I will not only be answering some questions in the chat, because there was one that I would like to look at with Corrido MVP commenting, but I also am going to be paying attention to some of the games that are going on right now. One of the games that's happening right now is Northwestern going up against Florida Atlantic. And right now, the score, they're in the second half. The score is 33-27 right now with 15 minutes left. And, ooh, nice floater. Northwestern right now is leading Florida Atlantic 35-27. And so far, like, this is starting to look very good for my bracket. I will say that right now, even though my bracket is already busted. But before I continue with, like, the rest of the college matchups going on last night, I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions in the chat right now and like give some opinions. So Corrido MVP, he said Devin Booker wants CP3 back. I haven't really paid attention to the Suns recently, and I also haven't like looked at the reports, so I'm not entirely sure how true that is. But if that is true, I'm not really surprised whatsoever, because Chris Paul is a very valuable asset at the point guard, and he's willing to do what it takes for his team to win, whether it be take up a lesser role, whether it be to run pick and rolls, whether it be to set up his team. That's just the player that Chris Paul really is. And like, there's really like, who wouldn't want Chris Paul back on their team? Like, and again, it also goes back to just KD being that extremely selfish player that he really, like, that he is. And it's like, he wants to be the man on his team, because that's just the ego that he has. And it's like, the media is still going to crucify him for not having legitimate titles yet, because he still hasn't won a legitimate title in my eyes, despite being in the league for well over 15 years. Tried forming a super team in Brooklyn. That failed due to injuries and Kyrie being a quack. And obviously, like a lot of people say, he would have won if his fat foot wasn't on the three-point line. But still, then he leaves to go join Phoenix after requesting a trade, and decides to just completely blows it in Game 6 at home against the Denver Nuggets, shooting abysmal from the field. And it's like this common trend of Kevin Durant blowing series where he should have won. It literally started when he blew that 3-1 lead before joining Golden State. And it's like the only real playoff success that he's had is with that Golden State Warriors team. And it's like, that is ridiculous, especially with someone who is as good and as talented as he is. And it's like, I'm sorry to all the KD fans, but he will never be better than LeBron, no matter how badly everyone wants him to be. But I digress. Now, looking more into the chat, Credo MVP says, he heard an NBA GM say, no, another team wants touch of KD. If Kevin Durant leaves the Suns, his only options are 1, to go back to the Warriors, or 2, retirement. Okay, so he's saying that no other team would want Kevin Durant. And I don't really agree with that. There's no way that any other team wouldn't want someone like Kevin Durant. There is just no way. Like, honestly, I could see him joining the Mavs, because the Mavs, they take really good care of their players and they always cater to their players. So I could see him joining the Dallas Mavericks. And yeah, it's like nothing really that needs to be like, I mean, it's Kevin Durant. Like, why wouldn't any team want Kevin Durant on their roster? I don't think that's true. I really don't think what you said was true whatsoever, but that's just me. So, Crucial PG asked a question, what losses do I have on my bracket right now? So, I'm just going to see if there's any games that just recently ended, and I don't think there were, because they literally just started. So, okay, no games have ended. So, I had BYU going all the way, and that messed me up. So that was the first game that messed me up, and there was the other team. I also had Nevada pulling off the upset. On Dayton, but that ended up not happening. Nevada ended up blowing the game by allowing Dayton to go on a 24-4 run, I believe. And yeah, it was not good. It was not a good game whatsoever. Other than those 2 games, I got every other team right. And I get it, yay, it's a good. Actually, no, I lied. The other team that I messed up was Oakland going up against Kentucky. In one of my brackets, I had Kentucky losing, but most of the time I put the University of Kentucky making it all the way. Well, not all the way, but making it past the first round, because it's they are the University of Kentucky. It's really difficult to not put them as a team that advances. But it's and that loss to St. Peter's, that was a one in a lifetime, 1 in a million thing. That's what I thought. But nope, happens again to what team is this? Let me just load up the box scores to Oakland, straight Oakland, and it's again, it was kind of fluky, because they did have that one player just hit 10 straight threes and get 32 points, and obviously that's a ridiculous performance coming in from him, and a miracle performance, but still it's no one really expected them to just lose regardless. But I digress. So those were the teams that messed up my bracket, and in one of my brackets I had St. Peter's winning, but that's just because of I'm a fan, but in my heart of hearts, I knew that they weren't going to beat Tennessee, but I didn't really expect them to play this bad going against Tennessee, but I digress. So, Crucial PG also, just a quick update on the score, because they did Northwestern right now, 38-33, so Atlantic is making a comeback slowly but surely, and some of the other games that are going on right now, that is Baylor going up against Colgate. Baylor is up 54-34 at the half. So hopefully Baylor doesn't end up blowing this. I swear if they end up blowing this, I'm going to lose it. And I would bring up the rest of the games that are going to be going down, but there's so many of them and we don't have a lot of time, and I really want to get to the comments that are here. So Crucial PG says that he wouldn't want Chris Paul back, and I totally understand that, honestly. Speaking from, I know I said I wouldn't mind having Chris Paul back, but that's just because of, the veteran aspect of Chris Paul. He could teach, not only could he, be a useful in the pick and roll, but he could teach so many other players to be better versions of themselves, and to, not just make use of, other big men, but when he was pick and rolling with DeAndre Ayton, like, Ayton was getting so many easy looks that he just wouldn't have gotten if it wasn't for Chris Paul, in my personal opinion. Chris Paul, Crucial PG mentioned how Chris Paul, like, played really bad in overtime versus Milwaukee. Yeah, that is true. And, like, I do understand how, right now, since he is one of the older players in the league, you wouldn't really want an old point guard running the offense. But again, it's the veteran aspect of Chris Paul that I really admire, and that's really how I see Chris Paul, like, coming in, not just being useful, like, producing, but being useful in developing all of these young players, so that way they can produce. Like, I mean, I don't think Devin Booker would have been this good of a point guard if he wasn't playing with Chris Paul for a little bit, like, because Devin Booker, like, he moved from shooting guard to point guard for a little bit, so that way, like, you know, Bradley Beal can play that shooting guard, and Kevin Durant can play that small forward / power forward with Grayson Allen. And him being that playmaker, I don't remember him being that good of a playmaker before Chris Paul. But that's just me. So, let me see. Another game that is about to go down is San Diego State going up against the UAB Blazers. Now, I believe I do have San Diego State winning this round, so please, hopefully I am right. The game is literally about to start in maybe 2 or 3 minutes, but I'm just going to quickly look at this game right now. Northwestern, they went on a run, and the score is 43-36 right now with 11 minutes left, and it looks like they're going to go into a timeout. And yeah, so with that timeout, I think that is a very good spot to stop the stream, and that would be the end of the show. So thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and to leave a positive review. Really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And as I said in the beginning of the first 2 segments, I like to remind everybody to please tip and to donate. Use the link that is in the description or the link that is displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. Puts your comments directly in front of my screen. And with that, that is the end of the podcast. I am your host, Nelson. Thank you once again. And as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.